Uh, so thank you. The greetings have been done. So we shall begin. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Uh, uh, for those in New York, um, you will have a snow day. So I think you will all be inside. It will. Snow days are beautiful in New York until you step outside. When Prabhupada was in New York, he saw his first time he saw snow in his life. And when he woke up in the morning and saw everything was white, he thought somebody had taken whitewash paint and painted everything during the night because he had never seen snow before. And he didn't quite, he had a heavy jacket, but I don't think he had anything for his feet. It was quite uh, an unusual austerity for Prabhupada. I remember one time I was in New York um, at Barnes and Noble bookstore, sitting having a hot apple cider there one evening, and a storm came, and it snowed and snowed and snowed. And Bhakti and I were looking out the window how beautiful it was till we realized we don't own a pair of boots. We're from Florida. But fortunately, in Times Square, there's a store open 24/7 selling boots. So some of you may have to be there today. But I hope you have a warm day and survive this. Um, Today is an interesting verse, and we are in chapter 11. Chapter 4, the 11th canto, translated. Uh, Actually, I ran the production line producing this book, so I'm very intimate with it. Haridayanan Raj was translating the Sanskrit. Gopi Pranadana was translating some of the commentaries, and Dravida was doing the editing, and we were producing these books at a production line we had in Miami Beach. And um, as the books were being produced, um, Prabhupada had just passed on, and it was critical that these cantos be done. Devotees were very anxious for the books. And um, we already had the 10th canto, even though Prabhupada hadn't finished it. We already had the 10th canto because it was produced in the Krishna book in the summary form. So then this began with the 11th and going on to the 12th canto. The 12th canto I found shocking because it was in the future tense and it described a world of crony capitalism, as using the modern term, not the Bhagavatam term. And I said, oh, I'll never see that in my life. Oops, I was wrong. We live in it right now. Crony capitalism is how it was described. If you read it, that's the description. Robber barons will control the various governments of the world, and you seek their favor and get the government favors and all of that. That's the 12th canto. But today we're in the 11th canto. Now, King Nimi is taking instruction from the in here. King Nimi is taking his instruction, and he's getting instructions from the children of Rishabhadev. And here we're going to look at verse 7 and verse 8. So I'll read some of the English in verse 7, then we'll go to verse 8. King Indra became very fearful, thinking that Narayan Rishi would become powerful by severe penances and seize Indra's heavenly kingdom. Thus Indra, not knowing the transcendental glories of the incarnation Lord, sent Cupid and his associates to the Lord's residence in Bhadra ashram. As the charming breezes of spring created a most sensuous atmosphere, Cupid himself attacked the Lord with arrows in the form of the irresistible glances of beautiful women. So we have many examples in the Bhagavatam. Let me see. Somebody put in the chat 11:49. I think my verse is 11:48 today, unless it's supposed to be 11:49. Somebody can correct me in the chat. And we have many examples where somebody become envious. I mean, Indra again at the Govardhan Hill pastime. Somebody can unmute and give me another pastime where people became envious of somebody's devotional success. Somebody want to give me some other examples?
Well, there's Indra again with Prithu Maharaj, and then also Lord Brahma, envious of Lord Krishna himself.
Yeah. We have the case of Daksha. Many cases where people became envious. So the question is, what do we do when somebody becomes envious of us? What do we do when someone criticizes us? How do we deal with these circumstances? So we're going to learn from the way the Lord dealt with these circumstances. And it's a very useful lesson. One time there was one devotee. He became very envious of Prabhupada. Now, it's hard to imagine somebody being that dumb, but it happened. And he was Prabhupada's Sanskrit editor. And he had become reasonably well-versed, not greatly well-versed, but reasonably well-versed in Sanskrit. And he would assist Prabhupada's translation work, do the word for words, things like that. So Prabhupada could focus on his purports. And he came across some books, and Prabhupada told him, don't read these books. They're very nasty, nasty books. I've shared this story before. I'm sure some of you have heard this many times. And one of these books was particularly nasty in Prabhupada's mind. And the reason it was so nasty is it criticized Bhakti Siddhanta. Now we have the Smartana Brahmins. Smartana Brahmins believe in everything ritualistic and miss the essence. We have Smartana Brahmins in ISKCON. They're very concerned we get the right ritual. They're not very concerned we purify our heart or become devotional. We find Smartana Brahmins in every religion. So in this case, he had read a book by one of these Smartana Brahmins and was critical of Bhakti Siddhanta because Gaur Kishore did not do a particular ritual that's generally done in the tradition, something like that, and therefore Bhakti Siddhanta was not properly initiated, and the whole parampara then becomes bogus after that due to a lack of a particular ritual. And he read this book, and he had some contamination in his heart, and he became then very contaminated, and he started preaching against Bhakti Siddhanta and Prabhupada. So Prabhupada did something unusual, something he rarely did. He sent out a letter. I only know of 2 instances of this happening. He sent out a letter all over the movement. So-and-so has become a black snake. What a heavy comment from Prabhupada. It's become a black snake. And because he was going around preaching, and all the devotees, the average age was probably 25 or something. They were young, not very mature. Some of Prabhupada's God brothers from the Gaudiya Math were really sweet and nice and helpful, and some of them were apparently envious of Prabhupada's success in attacking the movement. So Prabhupada had to defend his movement. So in order to defend it, he took a radical step, and he said, okay, he's a black snake, do not listen to him. And that letter was sent all over the movement. Of course, there was no internet, so it was by mail then. And I remember how shocking that was for us to get such a letter. So and so, who he respected as Prabhupada's Sanskrit secretary, became a black snake. Every devotee in the movement at that time knew that story. Most people do not know the rest of the story. I'll share with you the rest of the story, which is very relevant for today's verse. The rest of the story is a month later, Prabhupada sent one of his assistants, go fetch so and so, bring him back, tell him all is forgiven. I want him as my Sanskrit secretary again. This devotee could not surrender, did not do it. But that was Prabhupada's attitude. He only attacked this devotee to the degree it was necessary to protect his movement. But he was very concerned about that person's spiritual advancement. And that's the kind of thing that's going on here. So we'll get to this verse. Vijnana Sakra Kritam Akraman Adideva Praha Prayasa Gata Vismaya Ejaman. The primal Lord, understanding the offense committed by Indra, did not become proud. Instead, he spoke laughingly. He was laughing at it, as follows to Cupid and his followers, who are trembling before him. So here, Cupid is coming to attack the Lord, Narayan Rishi. And the Lord, instead of doing something very powerful, what did the Lord do? Don't, don't not fear, O mighty Madonna, Cupid, O wind god and wives of demigods. Rather, accept these gifts I'm offering you and kindly sanctify my ashram by your presence. Imagine somebody coming into the Bhakti Center now and attacking us verbally. And our response is, thank you for purifying my ashram by your presence. This is the vision of a Vaishnav, seeing everyone as spiritually advanced, seeing everyone. A third-class devotee makes many distinctions and only sees the Lord in the temple. Second-class devotee, uh, I'd say that's second-class devotee. And a first-class devotee will see everyone as spirit soul. As it says in the Gita, the self-realized soul sees the dog eater, and the elephant all as equal, that everyone is within the Lord's hands. That's the vision here. And we'll read the purport, but first, as I like to do, I'll give you a little bit of musical interlude of an old gospel song that kind of captures the mood here. So we're going to give you a little gospel song today on this cold, snowy day. So this was a big hit in 1958. That was a good year. Okay. I'll give you a little gospel song for a minute, giving the capture of the mood here.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the little bitty baby in his hands. He's got the little bitty baby in his hands. He's got the little bitty baby in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
Okay, so here's your gospel entertainment for the morning. Thought give you a little gospel entertainment, and that's the theme here. That everything is seen in relation to the Lord. So even the people who were coming to kind of trick the Lord and to try to send Cupid to stop this sacrifice, the Lord said, no, you're all part of the same, and we're all part of the same family. So, somebody told me we did verse 8 yesterday. Today is verse 9. Oh, we'll do verse 8 and 9. We can share all the. Remember, our philosophy is it's all one. So, okay. I'll go on to verse 9. 2. My dear King Nimi, when Narayan Rishi thus spoke, eradicating the fear of the demigods, they bowed their heads with shame and address the Lord as follows to invoke his compassion. My dear Lord, you are always transcendental, beyond the reach of illusion. Therefore, you are forever changeless. Your causeless compassion towards us, despite our great offense, is not at all unusual for you, since innumerable great sages who are self-satisfied and free from anger and false pride bow down humbly at your lotus feet. And in the purport, the demigod said, our dear Lord, although ordinary living entities such as demigods and ordinary men are always disturbed by material pride and anger, you are always transcendental. Therefore, it is not surprising that we fallible demigods could not appreciate your glories. Now, I've shared this story, but it's worth repeating. It was 1969, I think, something like that. I am studying in college. I'm taking a course on the Bhagavad Gita. And we come across a verse in the Gita 9:30, apichetsu dacharo bhajate mam anyabhak. Even if one commits the most abominable action, sudacharo, it means bad action. It's Prabhupada translated as abominable, but literally means bad action. If he is engaged in devotional service, he's to be considered saintly because he's properly situated in his determination. And this was a very bewildering verse to me. Very, very bewildering. Apichet means even if. And Prabhupada, Krishna uses that in 436 also. He says, apichet asi papabhya. Even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you'll be able to cross the ocean of miseries. So when I heard this verse, I was bewildered. Now I knew zero Sanskrit, nothing in Sanskrit. But when I read it in English, it bewildered me. Why? Because at that time, I was a very black and white thinker. Vietnam War, bad. War protesters, good. College administration, bad. We should protest. Students, good. I thought everything black and white in those days. Remember, we had a draft. And when we had a draft during the Vietnam War, we took these things much more seriously than we do nowadays. Of course, we're about to be sent to Vietnam to be shot at. So we became much more philosophical. And when I heard that verse, I said, my gosh, what does that mean? You can't be good and bad at the same time. So I turned to my professor and I said, can you explain this to me? And he answered, it's intuitively obvious. That means he has no idea what the verse meant. No idea whatsoever, totally bewildered. Fast forward. I'm in the only verse I knew in the Gita in English, nothing else I know. Fast forward, I'm in Mayapur. I'm the only guest at the first Mayapur festival. I went there to do food relief for Bangladesh refugees. There's no buildings, there's just Prabhupada's hut, which you can see in the background of my picture. And so I had the great fortune of spending several days sitting with Prabhupada. Great fortune. So and the first verse Prabhupada quoted to me, he goes, Api Jetsudarsharo. And then he turned, and he knew by then I didn't know any Sanskrit. And he turns to me, so you know this verse. It was the only verse I knew in the whole Gita. And the first one Prabhupada quotes to me and says, do you know it? That was, and it's also the last verse he quoted to me. It's quite a miraculous event by every regard. I still can't quite understand how that happened other than a miracle. So here's the issue. Can somebody be good and bad at the same time? It's a big issue. What if somebody does something horrible, but they're a devotee? How do we look at it? What do we do? Do we look at it like Nara Narayan, uh, Rishi did? Oh, you're all forgiven. No big deal. I'll just laugh at it. Do we look at it as somebody who we have to exercise some justice. We have to deal with this. And there are examples of that. The most famous example in the Bhagavatam of the conflict between justice and mercy. Can somebody remind me what the most famous example is between justice and mercy? A huge debate. Somebody remind me.
Meal?
Not that is one, but there's even a more dramatic one in which the issue is debated.
Draupadi.
Ashvatthama.
Ashvatthama, tell me what happened.
Well, he killed the five sons of Draupadi and was caught, and everyone was debating what to do with him, and even Krishna was saying kill him, and others are not, and so they brought him before Draupadi to decide, and she said don't kill him, and they disgraced him by cutting off half of his mustache.
Yeah, well, what happened is, and even Krishna was involved in this debate. Here he is killing children while they're sleeping. I mean, my God, it does hardly gets more heinous activity than killing children in their sleep as a warrior, a kshatriya. To give an example, when Alexander the Great was conquering India, his chronicler made a note. He said, what an unusual society. Soldiers are fighting on the battlefield, and next to the battlefield, there are farmers plowing, and no one would think to bother them. Farmers are not fighters. You know, they have to maybe duck a stray arrow, but nobody would think to bother them or interrupt their lives. Soldiers fight, and when the sun goes down, they play chess with each other, the opposite sides. Then the next day they go back to killing each other. There were some kind of rules of conduct. And India took it very seriously. In Europe, collateral damage was very common in battles. In India, it just rarely happened. Even Alexander the Great was amazed by this. He said, I want to take Chanaka Pandit, the great advisor to the king, I want to take him back to meet my teacher. Does anybody know who Alexander the Great's teacher was? Somebody tell me. Oh, come on. Somebody must know. Who was
Aristotle?
Alexander the Great's teacher?
Was it Aristotle? Or Plato?
Aristotle. Yes, Aristotle, the famous Aristotle. So I want to take him back to meet Aristotle, but Chanaka Pandit wasn't interested in leaving India. And ultimately, Alexander the Great died before he made it back. All of us know when you go to India, sometimes when you leave, you don't come back with your full health. So these things do happen. And so they had a code of conduct. So we're here in the midst of this code of conduct. Ashvatthama did the worst thing. So the debate was, you know, Draupadi was saying, I don't want his mother to suffer the same way I'm suffering. My children are dead. I'm suffering so much. But he has a mother, and I don't want her to suffer. The pure kind of compassion. But Bhima and others argued, look what he did. He should be killed for what he did. This is the death penalty. And so what did they do? Well, they cut off his top knot and his hair. And in those days, if you were a Kshatriya and it was cut off, you lost all your pride. And Krishna says in the Gita that dishonor is worse than death. So they killed him in a way that, according to Krishna's instruction, is worse than death, but his mother still had the child. So they worked out some kind of compromise. This is, I've done for 20 years, 20 some odd years now, ISKCON Resolve, and this has always been my approach to come up with a solution. I try to channel the Ashvatthama story, a solution everyone could live with in resolving disputes, that we have to be fair to sense of justice and we have to be fair to mercy. And how to balance it is a very, very difficult matter. And I try to channel the wisdom that was done in the Ashvatthama story. So here, Narayan Rishi is doing the same thing. They've done something terrible. And so he just laughs at it, and he turns it around on them. He says, "You've come here." They came here to trick him, send beautiful women, as if, and Cupid and shooting arrows. If that can affect Narayan Rishi, it could sure affect the rest of us, but it couldn't affect him. So he just laughed. It's like sometimes a child will come, and a child will have a toy bow and arrow. And I've had this with my grandchildren. They're the toy bow and arrow. And the end of the arrow has a little suction cup on it. And they shoot it at me. I'm sure that's happened to some of you. And they shoot their arrow at me, and it goes and sticks to my forehead. It's a little suction cup. And what am I going to do? I mean, to me, it's like that. It's just laughable. It's very funny. So this is how the Lord saw it. He saw it as very funny. Hey, look at this. Cupid shooting arrows at me. It's like a little kid shooting arrows with suction cups. It has no impact. So he just thought it was funny. And then he turns to him, "And thanks for blessing the assembly," which caused him total embarrassment. And that was his way of dealing with it. Their punishment was to be totally embarrassed in front of all the sages. And after they were embarrassed, they really were apologetic about it, and they really felt terrible. So that was Narayan's clever way of dealing with this attack. He could have dealt with it other ways. I mean, when Lord Chaitanya met with Jagai and Madai, and they went and attacked Nityananda, his mood was to forget my disguise. I'm in disguise as Lord Chaitanya, really Vishnu. I'm in disguise. I'm going to leave my disguise. It's like Clark Kent, for those who know the Superman series. He's really, a mild-mannered reporter, but actually he's Superman with great powers. And if somebody would attack his friends, would he give up his identity of Superman, of Clark Kent, and expose that he's really Superman attack? It was kind of in that mood, to use some contemporary metaphor. And so he was about to give up his disguise. He called for Sudarshan Chakra, "Off with his head." And instead, Nityananda said, "No, sorry, wrong incarnation. That's not what you do during Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, we give them another chance. So give them a chance." And they both surrendered at his feet and became great preachers, actually. And they surrendered. So this balance between mercy and justice is very delicate and very difficult for Vaishnavas. Take it as a practical level when dealing with ISKCON society. If there was a study, Braja Bihari of ISKCON Resolve and I did. We had an example where somebody had stolen some money, and people approached us, "How do we deal with this stolen money? How do we deal with it?" So we did a study, and we called up many devotees who have dealt with it, where some devotee had stolen money, property, a car from the temple, just stolen things. How did Prabhupada deal with it? How do you think he dealt with it? Anybody have any ideas? Any suggestions?
He made that devotee a treasurer.
Not quite that. But what he did do is in all cases but two cases, he did not call the police. He gave them another chance. He was more concerned about their devotional life. In one case, somebody in Mayapur had stolen money, and devotees were about to either beat him or send him to the police, which means he'd get triple beaten. The police there generally beat you until you confess, and then they beat you a little more. And instead, Prabhupada said, give him another chance. And the devotee apologized, touched Prabhupada's feet, and went about his service very nicely until he stole again. And then Prabhupada sent him to the police. But in most cases, Prabhupada said it was more concerned about that devotee's own devotional service. But sometimes, in another case in Bombay, some wasn't even initially devotee, but one of the workers of the temple was stealing, and Prabhupada sent him to the police. But generally, Prabhupada, if somebody was sincere in their devotional service, or he thought there was some sincerity, he'd give them another opportunity because he was more concerned about the individual's soul and salvation. At the same time, in the ISKCON society, somebody does something horrible, somebody has abused children, rape children. We have horrible examples like that. They obviously have to be separated from the society. It's a legal danger. It's a danger. The ISKCON society has to be protected. It's a very delicate balance between justice and mercy. The general balance is to do what's best for the salvation and reformation of the souls while balancing it with protecting the society. And in this particular case, it was easy. It was the Lord himself. He just laughed at them. They immediately became apologetic and learned their lessons. Of course, Indra did learn his lesson, but then he forgot it later on again, in the Govardhan pastime. But at least he learned a lesson for a little while. Okay, I've been told to stop 10 minutes before for questions, comments. I realize this is a very difficult topic, so there may be some questions or comments. Please put it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask a question or comment if you like. Any? Yes, Narottama Nitai Das.
Dandavas Puji, I really appreciate your class and apologize for the way I look, but I wanted to ask you, when it comes to these topics of what you just presented today about the delicate balance between justice and mercy, these are topics that are, applicable to a lot of society. And how do we really, convey this message, I guess, even if we do, to like society as a whole? Because, then it comes to a question of status in terms of who we are in society. Like, not every devotee is a judge, so to speak, or like a lawyer, so to speak. So like, how do we convey this message to the general public? And also, it's a very touchy topic, especially given, I guess, in a mundane way of speaking, political circumstances, locally, or within the country, so to speak. So how do we, convey this without ruffling feathers that shouldn't be ruffled, so to speak?
Well, we will ruffle feathers for sure. But if we do it from Shastra and with a pure heart, people understand we're coming to the right place. I'll give an example. Take a country like Portugal. Portugal decided, now I'm an advisor to the police chief of Gainesville for last 14 years through some quirk of fate. And it's a big topic in policing, justice versus mercy. How do you deal with it? And in my work, I studied what they did in Portugal. Portugal decided to do an experiment. And they took their jails and they decided to offer the best reformation they can, schooling, counseling, everything they can to the prisoners. And they let half of their prisoners out of jail. Some people are just evil, and if you let them out of jail, you can't do it. But people who made a mistake could be reformed, even a serious mistake. They gave them every chance at reformation, and they cut the jail population in half. Curious what the crime rate did. You go to a place in America, especially, people will assume the crime rate will double. The crime rate fell in half. It didn't double, it fell. So they took mercy and justice, figured out a balance, and some people should never be let out of jail. When I was being trained as a mediator, I was being trained by a retired chief judge from our circuit here. And he said to me, I asked him, what was your time on the bench? He was a long time, very respected judge. So I said, tell me the worst time on the bench. He said, when I ran the criminal docket, it was terrible because the law bound my hands. Some people that came in front of me, I want to slap them on the wrist and just say, don't ever do that again, because it's in the jail. They'll be trained to become an expert criminal instead of a mediocre criminal. Obviously, a mediocre criminal, they got caught. And I want to slap them on the wrist, but I'm forced to send them to jail. Other people, I want to send them to jail and throw away the key because they're just bad people and I know what's going to happen. And jail will just fine tune their skills, but I can't sentence him as I should. He said, the law has tied me up. It was very, very revealing to me. So Portugal decided to do it a little differently. Those people who ought to be locked up, we'd keep locked up. And those people who could be reformed, we call it a reformatory, we call it a penitentiary, where you do your penance so you can go back into society. And they decided we're going to do everything we can to reform people. And darn it, it really worked well. It worked super well. Because in America, we just want to lock them up and throw away the key. They go to jail. Anybody who's been to a prison, and I've toured prisons, it's a training ground to become a gang member. Not much more than that. So balancing mercy and justice, the point I'm making, it's never easy. It requires finer brain tissue. How do we get finer brain tissue? We get up early in the morning, we chant Hare Krishna, we have a good diet. In other words, if we associate intimately with the mode of goodness, we will get the finer brain tissue to balance mercy and justice. And if we don't, we're not going to have that, and we're not going to be able to do like Narayan Rishi did here, like Asvatthama did, and many other stories like Lord Chaitanya did, balance mercy and justice. I think we have time for one more question, comment, criticism, reflection, or a snow day joke. They're all good. Anybody have anything they'd like to add? This is a difficult topic. Somebody might have some thoughts. We greet the deities in 2 minutes. I'll give you a moment to think about it. I think everyone's too cold in New York to have a comment. Um, um, let me conclude. There's no easy answer to this one. This requires what's called wisdom, balancing mercy and justice. We have some people who are wired very much to the justice side. Some people are wired, I think they're born that way, to the mercy side. Those of us who want to be Brahminical, no matter what our predisposed wiring is, we must be inspired by the Ashvatthama story and use wisdom. What we call it in our mediation parlance is the elegant solution, a solution that properly balances mercy and justice, that protects society and preserves the individual's spiritual life. That is the tightrope that if we are to be Brahminical, we must learn to walk. And it is never, never easy, but it's important. Very, very important. We learn to walk that tightrope. Okay, with that, I think it's 8 o'clock. I think it is time to greet the deities. I wish you all a happy snow day, as you are forbidden in New York to even travel today. So stay warm, and it's a good, we call a snow day a reading day. For the kids here, you can get your sleds out and find some good hill to go down. For the rest of you, it's a good reading day, so take advantage of it. Have your hot carob drink, as we say, and read some Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Brahmatirtha Prabhu, for speaking on this subject matter. Thank you for being qualified and for taking up this task of speaking on this subject matter. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada said that requires intelligence. It's not just Shastra and us, it's also Shastra and the Guru interprets Shastra, and the community also helps. It's like with the law. It's not just the book of law. There's a judge that knows how to apply the law, and it's never easy, like you said, and it requires balancing and brain tissue, finer brain tissue. Thank you. Sweet. Okay. Would anyone like to speak? This is the afterglow. I don't think we have anybody in the temple room streaming. Or maybe a home deity, home altar. Would anyone like to show their home deities?
Hare Krishna. I've got a quick comment, a quick story. I actually go in just a minute, but on this topic, I don't know how many people know the Moth Radio Hour.
Kind of what are you doing?
And there was this story of this gentleman on the Moth Radio Hour whose daughter was murdered, and he actually, for him to be able to deal with it, started going to the prison and visiting the man that murdered his daughter. And it was only through that and actually befriending this man that he was able to find complete forgiveness and carry on. So I do think there's, a definite place for balance of mercy and justice and being able to forgive and carry on in this lifetime. Thank you so much, Brahmatirtha Das. It was wonderful, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Hari Bol, everyone.
Thank you, Mike Prabhu. Thank you very much. Isaiah, thank you for the darshan. We saw it. Okay, Isaiah, Annabelle, Sage, and Sky. Please unmute yourself and chant Hare Krishna loudly. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Annabelle, thank you. Isaiah. Sage, Hare Krishna. Sky, good morning. Jim Duggar, happy snow day.
You say good morning.
Hey, why did you suck there? Ow. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. I'm blocking Sky, Mom. You are.
Thank you very much. My brain tissue feels very fine after hearing the chanting. Thank you very much, dear devotees. Thank you. Happy snow day. Hare Krishna. Krishna is real. He knows what's going on. And Srimad Bhagavatam never ends. That's all for all we know. Devotees Association is never, it's always there. Never fails to keep us going. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Isaiah, you have a tooth missing? Can you smile? Yes? Okay, sweet. Very good. Very impressive, Isaiah. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I think somebody has to say something. I don't know if we're going to log off, but Neurotomite, I believe I just saw in the chat.
Yeah, I just wanted to say quickly. I think when it comes to like Lord Ramachandra being like the ideal Krishna is the ideal Kshatriya in that type of mood, and also like understanding the Bhagavad Gita through and through, because I remember devotees telling me that Srila Prabhupada told us to know the Bhagavad Gita like a law book. You should know the verse number and should be able to know which verse it is, and the understanding of the purport, etc. So I guess it goes a long way, because like the mode of goodness, really being able to do the morning program, and then um and really establishing our sadhana bhakti in the morning will really help us to come to understand this intricate relationship between mercy and justice, like Prabhuji was talking about. So yeah, I think it just goes a long way. But yeah, it's a very important topic. I think a lot of people all over the world are really very much interested in this topic. So actually, anyone who wants to preach about it can probably go a long way. Right, Krishna?
Thank you, Narottam Nitai Prabhu. Yeah, we're very fortunate that we have devotees like Brahmatirtha Prabhu who can speak properly about those subject matters. Yeah, we're very fortunate that we have Prabhupada's disciple available to give us their association. We're very fortunate to have Sky available to give us her association. Thank you, Sky. Thank you, Annabelle and Isaiah. Annabelle, that missing tooth that Isaiah, is that you? Did you punch Isaiah? No? Did you knock the tooth out? No, not you? Okay.